This is the end zone. Let's move the chains. This is the first official real schedule we've had come out. I mean, we have the ACC schedule, but we don't have their one more game. We don't have the SEC or Big Ten. So let's break it down. Also this week, I'm going to be pumping out the Pac-12 content, Pac-12 teams, predictions, and previews. With that being said, let's talk about the Pac-12. And this is the only graphic you're going to see during this video because really it's all that you need. So before we dive into the schedules, let's talk about teams that I think are contenders. So you got Oregon, Cal, Washington, Stanford, Utah, Arizona State, and USC. Now let's talk about national contenders. I think that Oregon and USC are the top national contenders in terms of getting to the playoffs. Arizona State, I think that they would be my third, just outside there. You know, Arizona State's a team that I believe is 2 years away from being a real national contender, but they could contend this year. Now, Oregon and USC, speak of the devil, they lose huge non-conference games, and that, in a sense, helps them. So Oregon, obviously going to lose Ohio State. They also lose North Dakota State. That probably wouldn't have mattered much for them, but it was a game we all would have liked to see Trey Lance against that Oregon defense. USC, they lose even bigger games. Not only do you lose Alabama in the beginning of the season, but you lose Notre Dame. Cal, they lose TCU. Washington, they lose Michigan. Stanford, Notre Dame. So as you can see, there were a couple games, non-conference, that are being affected, but that might actually help the Pac-12 because they aren't necessarily the best at winning these non-conference games. If they have a team that runs the table, then they will make it into the playoffs. If we have one, hopefully, crossing my fingers. So let's go down the line on all these teams, see what they miss, what they get in their schedule, starting with the Oregon Ducks. Oregon, before their bye week, they really only play Arizona State. That's going to be their toughest game. But then after that bye week, Washington, Cal, USC, Arizona, a nice easy game there, and then Stanford and Utah. So I think Oregon probably has the hardest stretch out of any Pac-12 team in terms of after the bye week. I mean, that is a very tough stretch for the Pac-12. Next, we'll go over Arizona State. They start off the season with Arizona, Stanford, and Oregon. So two pretty tough games to start off, Stanford and Oregon, before the bye week. Then they have a nice schedule. They miss Washington. That's a pretty key miss to have on your schedule. Cross into the North Division. So Arizona State kind of gets lucky there, and that might help them. After Arizona State, we have California. Now, California plays USC, Washington, Stanford, then a bye, then Oregon, Utah, and Arizona State. So Cal gets a pretty tough schedule in the North Division. They get Arizona State from the South, and late in the season, they do have the stretch with Oregon, Utah, and Arizona State. That will be important for them if they want to contend. USC, another team that I think has a pretty good shot, starting off the season with UCLA, Cal, Stanford, Colorado, and Arizona. I think that they run the table here. They are better than all of these teams listed. And in the second half of the season, Washington State, Oregon, Arizona State, Utah, and Washington. They don't really miss anyone on this schedule. They get a bulk of it. But the end of the season, it's going to be very tough, but I think that they could probably overcome it. They get a bye week before playing Oregon, which is very important. They also have Arizona State, Utah, and Washington. That's a pretty rough stretch, but the schedule does set up nicely because they get that bye week before that stretch. Washington plays Stanford, Arizona, Cal. Then they have a bye week, Oregon State, Oregon, Colorado, Utah, UCLA, Washington State, and Southern Cal. Now, the thing about Washington is they miss Arizona State. So Arizona State and Washington, I think that they have the best chance in terms of scheduling because they miss each other. Yeah, they could contend because they don't play each other across the divisions. They do get some of the tougher teams like Utah and USC from the South. Now we can take a look at Stanford, probably our final team on here. Washington, Arizona State, USC. They have by far the hardest beginning of the schedule. I mean, that's a 3-game stretch that they can't afford to have any slip-ups on. And you got Cal, Washington State, UCLA, Oregon State, Colorado, Oregon, and Arizona. So they might finish the season really well. 2 losses at the most, but that beginning of the schedule is definitely going to be a grind. Now, there are a couple teams on here that I thought I should mention, like Oregon State, a team that I thought has been trending on the upward direction. They miss USC. Washington State, I think that they're going to struggle this year. They had an out-of-conference game against Houston, which I would have liked to watch. Fortunately, we won't get that. Arizona, I don't have much optimism for them. UCLA, they miss Oregon. So that's pretty nice for UCLA, a team that is really kind of in the gutter right now. In terms of returning production, it feels like Utah loses the most. I thought last year was Utah's year. We'll see how they shape up. And Colorado, no California. So I'd love to know what you think about the Pac-12. What are your contenders? If I had to pick now, I'd probably pick Oregon and USC, or Oregon and Arizona State. I'm definitely interested to see how this schedule plays out, and I'm interested to watch the Pac-12 this upcoming year. We have a very, very exciting season ahead of us. Let's move the chains. Thanks for watching the End Zone. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment so we can move the chains.